Today, we're going to talk about encouraging your students to go above and beyond. Now, this may not be for everyone in that way, but just one of the things to kind of keep in mind is that, excuse me, one of the things to keep in mind is that students can do a job. That there's no problem with that. They can hit the minimum requirements for the job and get themselves a C. That's a 70. But for some people, going above and beyond is not something that they're prepared to do, and for some people, it's not something they would have even crossed their mind in the beginning that is something that they could do. And I'll give you an example. If you go to a math class and the teacher tells you that you need to do if you need to do problems 1 through 60 for your homework, a student will do problems 1 through 60, and I hope check their work, check their work against the key in the back of the book to make sure that they're on point. But it may not occur to the student that they could do problems 61 through 80 or 61 through 100. It may not occur to them to do that because it's not required. Similarly, and in that same total, because it's not required, the teacher probably won't grade that work. The teacher may be confused, why did you do extra work? So it may not be that in all instances doing above and beyond the requirements are helpful. Still, if you are assigned a 5-page paper and you turn in a 5-page paper, you might still get an A. If you turn in a 12-page paper and you were only supposed to do 5, you may very well get swatted down. So the idea of what counts as above and beyond in some cases may be enrichment, and in other cases it may be a requirement. So I'll give you an example. In woodworking, if you are supposed to make a chair and you make a chair with straight up and down legs, straight up and down back, and a straight across seat, you have done the requirements for this project, and you might get a C, you might even get a B or an A. But seated next to a student who has worked designs into the back of the chair back, or scraped down the seat so that it is contoured for the human body, or applied the wood grains of the boards individually so that they are in a pleasing fashion, or sanded it down and given it a stain, or given it an individual painting style. These things are not required by the project, but they are above and beyond meeting the minimum requirements for a project. So, a student who produces an up and down chair with up and down legs and an up and down back and a flat across seat may pass. They've done the minimum requirements. But one who has taken all these steps to go above and beyond has created a product which excels. It is superior. It is one that requires more work and more effort and more understanding. So what can you do if you are in a field in which going above and beyond is a recognized achievement? How can you encourage people to go above and beyond? First of all, you're going to need to know your students. You may need to find out what it is that motivates them, what it is that they want to do. For instance, if they only want to be a print designer, building things for the web may not interest them. They may do less than the best work that they could do simply because they're just not interested. Similarly, if you have a web designer who has taken your class and they're absolutely positively not interested in making posters or postcards because they throw those things away as soon as they come in the mail, well, then you're going to find a student who is not as motivated to do that job. To motivate them, you'll need to learn a little bit about them and use what you know to help them along their way. Now, it has always been my experience that the level of the class will rise to meet the expectations of the teacher. And so when, as a teacher, you set high standards, student work raises to meet those high standards. But what if you have someone who just doesn't want to try that hard? Do your best. Reach out to them. Do what you know. But like any problem, you might want to consider this a kind of silent objection to doing more than is required. And just like any objection, you fight this objection not by trying to bully this person, but by asking questions. Tell me, did you do enough? Do you feel like you put in enough time and effort on this piece? It looks like you've worked rather hard. There's plenty of ways in which you could push this along, but something's happened along the way. I often recommend that my students put in 20 hours a week on this class. That's 8 hours a week on research and reading and lectures and video content and getting themselves ready for the project, and 8 to 12 hours each week just designing the materials. So, have you been putting in that much time? If not, what do you think might be stopping you from putting in those hours? Or, we've set aside quite a bit of time for this, but your work does not really seem reflective of 8 to 12 hours a week over 2 weeks. Is there something that's holding you back? Getting these questions out in the open will allow you to combat the issues directly. Alternately, if you find that a student is not really reaching their potential, you can sit down with them one-on-one and try to talk with them about what it is they're doing and how they're doing it. Sometimes, while this approach might by some be called hand-holding, I would consider it more of directed research and work, or directed work and research. Help them, be the guide at their side, as it were, leading them on the way, asking them the questions, pointing to the things that they're doing right, asking them about the things that they're doing wrong, and trying to generally lead them in a constructivist approach to success within the classroom. Now, if you've got a B-level student, this approach can certainly help them, but if you have a D-level student, pushing them to excel at every project might be the wrong way to take this. Remember, you're trying to do your practices in the classroom which are going to affect the student in a beneficial, positive way. Taking a student who is failing to meet the minimum criteria for the class and demanding a super fast expectation of excellence within the classroom, that is only going to turn them off even further. Now, the usual way in which you can encourage this move to excellence, within our program, a student does a project, they get started with the project, we critique their work. They advance the project, we critique how it's gone so far. Then they have a week in which they are working on this on their own, creating, adjusting, refining, doing studies with type, doing studies with color, and generally improving their design slowly but surely over a week. Now, If along that way a student has not succeeded, or a student has done a fantastic piece of work and there is room for more, we find that encouragement in the latter half of the project to be very, very useful. The push to excellence really takes up its fullness of fruition. I don't know what the word for that is. It really blossoms. How about that? It really blossoms in our capstone course, our portfolio, where the students show the best of their best work. Now, in this kind of capstone environment, a student finds that when they did one good piece, they're encouraged to do more good pieces. Just like when you go to a restaurant and someone orders a sandwich or a hamburger, they're offered fries and a drink with that, right? Because they did one thing and they did it well, the chances that they could hop ahead to a slightly different, slightly better, based on a current good decision that they've made, really stands a chance and an opportunity for them to come up with some truly excelling work. So in our case, after a student does a good job, we can encourage them. This is a great poster. I really like what you're doing here. You know, if you built this up with... What are they doing over there? You know, if you built this up in such a way that instead of doing one poster about James Heffler, what if you did a second poster about Hermann Zapf and a third poster about Ben Guyatt? Then you would have three pieces, three great posters about typography that would all be related, and it would look like not only did you have one idea one time as a one-hit wonder, but you had one idea that was able to go across multiple pieces in a state of fantastic design. Similarly, if you had a student who did a great paper, you might ask them to make a presentation. Or you might say, you've done such an excellent job with your presentation. Why not consider putting your presentation on YouTube? Putting these items slowly, one ahead of another, as a way of enriching and expanding on good work is a great way to lead students towards excellence and excelling status. Because once they've done it once, they will get the feeling for it. It is similar to playing a game in which you always lose. You don't feel that great about it. However, when the opportunity comes for you to play a game which you win, the chance of you winning again becomes an enticing way for you to approach the game. It's something everybody likes. So another good way to keep people from great territory into excellent territory, or from good to excellent, is to build upon a previous excellent decision or excellent set of circumstances or presentations that they've made. It encourages them by acknowledging that they did well, letting them know that you feel respectful of their work, and letting them know that it is your opinion that the work was so good and you are so believing of their talent that they could do it again. All they have to do is try. Now, when you, as a teacher, are encouraging your student to take their ideas and their abilities and their work to the next level, the important thing here is to be relevant. Sounds silly, but bear with me on this. If a student did a great presentation and then you said, wow, that was really fantastic, have you thought about doing some kind of a little side beat in tap shoes? People would really not understand where you're going with that. On the other hand, if you were to say, I really like what you've done there, would you consider putting together a PowerPoint presentation so that I could give that similar presentation to one of my classes? Now you're starting to speak about something in which the student can understand and see the relationship. If you say, you've done a great job with this postcard, have you ever thought about turning it into a poster? You could do the poster at the same orientation, just make it larger, and work in a little bit more about the event. What are the days? What are the times? What are the costs? Whereas the postcard may give people an idea, the poster will give people the information. And while saying it is nice, if you could back up your argument with facts by showing them another set where some designer somewhere has shown mailing pieces, posters, postcards, ways in which they are showing their work, ways in which they are showing their work in multiple venues, multiple times, then you will find that you're starting to put yourself in a really good spot where if you show them what others have done, they can see it for themselves, or they may be able to make an intellectual leap into something slightly different. So, for instance, if a student shows you a business card, that's very nice. The business card is nice. But if they were to show you the business card alongside a website mock-up, that would be even better. Or if they were to show you the business card alongside a letterhead and an envelope, now you start to see that a business begins to take form and its corporate identity begins to be clearer. An easy 3-step way to, or maybe it's one way, maybe it's 3 ways. Here are 3 ways that you can urge your students to push themselves a little bit harder. First of all, ask a question. Second of all, make a suggestion. And third of all, tell them the advantages. So for instance, that's quite a nice logo you have there. Have you ever thought about putting it on a business card or a letterhead or an envelope? This question may prep them into, now that they have got a minor item, how could it be used in real life? You could make a suggestion. I like this logo. Perhaps you should put it on a business card. Or you can explain the benefits. This logo is nice, but it's one thing done one time. If you were to put this on a letterhead, a business card, and an envelope, people would see that you can do one thing across multiple platforms and make it seem connected. That would really benefit you moving into your portfolio. Questions are a great way of learning more about the student and their process in an effort to make sure that you can get the best things for them. So, an example might be, this logo is nice. How do you think you will use it in your portfolio? This might pique them to say that they would use it by themselves, or that they hadn't really thought about it. How should they use it? Or they may say, why are people driving like freaking idiots? So they may say that they're going to use it by themselves. Why? How should they? Or they may say they don't have any idea. Or they may say that they have been thinking about doing something more with it, but they're not quite sure what to do. Alternately, they may let you know that they're already peaked for greatness. They might say, well, I was going to do a set of CDs and thumb drives. Do people even use CDs anymore? Thumb drives. DVDs. Do people even use DVDs anymore? Stop talking. Thumb drives, whatever. They're gonna tell you things that you haven't thought about before. And this will be a great way for you to understand that, yes, they are thinking about other things. Great things. You may then try to ask a question as a different way of getting around to that point. I like that you've designed your own business card and your own resume. How many business cards do you think you will be using in a month? How many do you think you should order? How many resumes will you need within the first 3 months of getting out of school? I'm sure that their answer is going to be hopefully one. Anyway, by asking them these kinds of questions, you might get someplace good. How about, this logo is very interesting by itself, but how might you use it for a corporate business? Or, I like this restaurant logo. What other things do you have planned for it? These questions will hopefully pique the student into recognizing that they should do something more with it. Or, you may try to make a suggestion. You know, many of my students who have done logos have also thought about mocking up websites. You should do that. Or, many of my students find that they can get 1,000 business cards for $40 or $50. Have you thought about an interest like that for your material? You should. Or, I see this logo has been built in Photoshop, which is probably nice and was probably fun for you to do. However, it really won't scale. You should make this redesigned in Vector using Illustrator. Or you make a slightly different suggestion. It is often suggested that you should learn WordPress before you make it to your final portfolio. Many students find that it is beneficial. Many students find that it is easy to use and makes a great online website. Or you may make a more complicated suggestion, such as Bill, your use of this font is nice, but I don't suggest that you use Comic Sans. Many experts find it off-putting and thoughtless. You don't want to come across that way. The third option is to lay all the options on the table and give the benefits. Now, Mr. Smith, I see that you have missed one of your classes or taken it out of order. So, your options are thus. Here in the fall, you can take Photoshop and typography in the same semester. Next semester, you can take Illustrator and photography. While photography is an introductory class, having a full working knowledge of Photoshop will allow you to have nicer photographs and have more control over the tones and colors you're using. Or you might say, instead of taking 3 classes this summer, what you can do is you can take 3 classes this summer. I would suggest client media relations, copyright and advertising, and Web 140. However, you can also take copywriting and advertising and client media relations this summer, and then take Web 140 in the fall. Now, the benefit to you is that many people find that taking 2 classes in the summer barely gives them time to use the bathroom. Having a 3rd class might be far too heavy for most people to work with. And some people find taking a web class online by yourself over the summer in an accelerated environment to be too difficult and too lonely. Taking Web 140 in the fall will allow you to have more control over your schedule this summer and allow you to have the kind of one-on-one classroom training that many students find enjoyable. So you can also talk with them about the benefits of what it is that they have going on. So, Mr. Smith, I see that you are currently signed up for our associate's degree, but you have not yet had a chance to sign up for our certificates. With our Step Up to a Degree program, you can earn 5 certificates on the way to your degree without doing any extra classes. These are free to sign up for. They're free to get when you complete, and as soon as you sign up, well, provided you sign up, you will complete all of them on the way to achieving your final degree in this school. Now, are you interested in signing up for certifications? The benefit to you is that if you decide that you get a job partway through the year and you're going to have a hard time returning to school, you can at least say that Wake Tech Community College stands behind your abilities as a graphic designer. So, when should you encourage your students to push themselves into excellence? First of all, you will be able to do it in the beginning of the process. Once you hand them a new project, you may want to go ahead in the description of the project and say these things are required, but students wishing to go above and beyond should also try these things. In our case, during the critique of the project, if someone's doing an excellent job, you can say, I like what you're doing here. Maybe you should consider how this logo would look on a t-shirt or a hat. What kind of t-shirts and hats will the people in this restaurant be wearing? A simple question like that may cause them to think more deeply about the project, the ins and outs of their individual ideas about the project, and that will make it better. They will have stronger concepts and more ties to the work. Once you have done your final critique, as you're walking around while students are refining their work, you may take that opportunity to give them that little creative nudge. Hey, I like this color here. This red, along with this typeface, looks pretty fantastic. How do you think that might look if it were wrapped on a vehicle? Or, I really like the way these colors play out. How do you think it might look on a business card with that red? Would it be too flashy? But just because a student is not in the middle of an active project doesn't mean that you won't be at a point where you could encourage them into excellence. You could always email them. Hey, Bill, last semester you did some fantastic work. I hope that this semester you're giving all of your projects as much time and effort as you gave mine last time. By the way, I remember at the end of last semester, you told me you were thinking rather heavily about moving into the realm of web design. Have you tried putting your most successful project in last semester into a web template? If you did, I'd love to see it. Or maybe something even more. Hey class, I hope you're doing all right. The upcoming break is going to be a fantastic opportunity for all of us to take a breather from school and really get back into the swing with our families. However, if you get that melting feeling that maybe you're supposed to be doing something else during this time, why not take a look at one of our first two projects? Is there a way that you could expand those into something truly fantastic? Wow, it is raining really, really hard. Sure, it's a good job to tell them at the end of the project, especially if they get a good grade, make some suggestions to them. But perhaps at the end of the project, you could mention something to the entire class. Ways in which these projects could quickly and easily be adjusted. When talking with a student one-on-one about how they may improve, it is often helpful if you mention that you know, I think I've got a good idea what you could do with this to improve it even more. Would you like to hear it? Or, I think I see a way that you could vastly improve this project. Is it all right if I tell you how? You don't want to then whip out a giant laundry list of ideas and thoughts and terms and things like that, because you're just going to overwhelm them. Instead, break it down to the smallest, easiest, most beneficial ways, and make sure that you are focusing on the benefit. Remember, everything that you're doing while you're teaching is put together in such a fashion so that the end benefit is being put in mind for the student. Remember, we're trying to improve the student and their lives. We're certainly not trying to force our agenda.
If I didn't mention it already, if you are going to offer them multiple options, don't ever offer them more than 3, because if you give them too much, they may be stymied by their ability of knowing what to do. To apply this knowledge today, consider using one of these methods when speaking with a student about their work.
You may be surprised to find that students who are given multiple options will choose one and, therefore, begin to excel.
Design your future. Also, you and all your friends get together and just blow up that like button.